What if just by looking at the spec sheet of any motorcycle that you could look up online, you could get some real clues about how that motorcycle handles? Is it good for tight control skills, or maybe you want something that's a little more stable on the highway? All that information is in plain sight once you understand a few key motorcycle characteristics, what they mean, and how they affect the handling of the motorcycle. Or maybe you've got a buddy who can make 18-foot U-turns on his motorcycle and he keeps giving you a hard time, but the best you can do is a 20-foot U-turn on your motorcycle. Well, maybe the playing field's not equal. This week, we'll discover how to read the playing field, how to determine what those specs means, and how they affect the motorcycle handling. Motorcycles, much more than cars, in my opinion, are purpose-built machines. There are reasons why sport bikes look much different than a touring motorcycle, and the differences are much more than aesthetic deep. Sport bikes are lightweight, they're aerodynamic, the rider's ergonomics are meant to keep the rider in a tucked position so that they cut through the wind much easier as they're riding at higher speeds. Sport bikes sacrifice rider comfort for speed and aerodynamics. Touring bikes, on the other hand, are heavier. This makes them more stable on the road. They get blown around less by 18-wheelers out on the highway. They're not very aerodynamic because the goal is to move wind around the rider, not wind smoothly over the motorcycle and the rider. And they're much more comfortable in their ergonomics so that a rider can have a long day in the saddle, traveling from place to place. Touring bikes sacrifice speed and aerodynamics for rider comfort and amenities. So sport bikes and touring bikes are on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to their purpose, but then there are a whole lot of motorcycles that are in between that sport bike and touring bike spectrum that try to mix and match a few of the features of each to find the perfect motorcycle for you and to separate you from your hard-earned money. Some of the differences in motorcycles will make one more maneuverable than another. Not all motorcycles can make the same degree of U-turn, for example. Before we can understand what to look for in the stat sheet when you're looking up the specs, first we have to understand a few key terms and how they relate to motorcycle handling. First one we'll talk about is rake. Motorcycle rake, often referred to simply as rake, is the angle between the motorcycle's steering head, so where the front fork is mounted, and the vertical line. This angle makes a significant influence on the motorcycle's handling characteristics. A larger rake angle, meaning that the fork is more laid back, generally results in better stability at high speeds, but less responsive steering. Conversely, a smaller rake angle, with the front fork more vertical, enhances the motorcycle's agility and cornering ability, but can reduce the high-speed stability of the motorcycle. The balance between stability and maneuverability is crucial in motorcycle design and can be adjusted according to the intended use of the motorcycle. A motorcycle with a long rake like this one is one of the reasons why you'll never see this guy on one of his motorcycles in a police skills competition. Another key element that we have to understand is trail. Motorcycle trail is defined as the distance between the point where the motorcycle's steering axis, the line drawn through the front forks, intersects with the ground, and the point where the front wheel's axis touches, so where the tire touches the ground. It's measured along the ground. Trail is what helps the motorcycle naturally return to a straight line after turning. A larger trail provides more stability, especially at high speeds, but can make the steering feel heavier. A small trail makes for lighter, more responsive steering, but can lead to reduced stability at extremes. So this balance is important for the handling characteristics of the motorcycle. So one easy way for me to think about rake and trail is to consider a shopping cart. On a shopping cart, the front wheels are directly below the pivot point, and that's why that shopping cart from a dead stop can swing to the left or the right easily. A shopping cart's an example of extremely short rake and trail. The next big factor that affects motorcycle handling, especially at slower speeds, is the wheelbase of the motorcycle. Motorcycle wheelbase is the distance between the centers of the front and rear wheels of the motorcycle. This measurement is crucial as it influences the motorcycle's overall handling characteristics and stability and its maneuverability. A longer wheelbase generally provides greater straight line stability, making the bike steadier at high speeds and during acceleration. That's why drag bikes look like this. They want straight line stability at high speeds and acceleration. Conversely, a shorter wheelbase tends to enhance the motorcycle's agility, making it much more responsive in turns and easier to maneuver in tight spaces. That's why MotoGP bikes look like this. They have that short wheelbase that makes them highly maneuverable out on the track. The ideal rake, trail, and wheelbase for a motorcycle depends on its intended use and what the rider wants to use it for. In my opinion, as far as street bikes go, Harley-Davidson does a great job in finding that right balance of rake and trail and wheelbase to make a big touring motorcycle as maneuverable as they do, especially considering its weight and size. If you go to any police skills competition, the vast majority of motorcycles that you will see in those competitions are Harley-Davidson, and it's partly due to that they function very well in that environment, and they also provide the amenities that a rider needs for a long day in the saddle. There are other contributing factors that affect a motorcycle's maneuverability, like the overall weight of the machine, the lean angle that the motorcycle can attain before hard parts start hitting the ground, the center of gravity for the motorcycle, so lower weight helps maneuverability, the suspension, and probably the biggest is right here, the rider who's riding the motorcycle. So while not every motorcycle will compete on a level playing field when it comes to running through a skills course, there's almost always room for the rider to make improvements and to get better no matter what motorcycle they ride. You know, these are techniques like using the clutch in the friction zone, using a little bit of rear brake to help maintain balance, counterweighting as you go around the corners, and that always important skill of looking where you want the motorcycle to go. But if you're shopping for a motorcycle or you're just curious and you want to compare one motorcycle's handling characteristics to another, look up the specs on your motorcycle and find the rake, trail, and wheelbase of the one that you're currently riding because you have a good idea how that handles. Then go out and look at the rake, trail, and wheelbase of any motorcycle that you're considering and compare those numbers. This is going to help you determine things like the maneuverability, the stability at speed, the ability to corner, and a whole bunch of other riding dynamics with the motorcycle that you're already familiar with to compare that to the specs of any motorcycle that you can find online. Once you know the spec numbers and what they mean, you can have a pretty good idea of the handling characteristics of a motorcycle even before you get the opportunity to take it for a ride. Just remember that we can almost always improve the handling of any motorcycle we own simply by adjusting that nut that connects the seat to the handlebars, because that's often the weakest point. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road. See that video on the left of the screen? YouTube hand-selected that video just for you. Click on it, find out why YouTube wants you to watch this MCrider video.